You're standing on the deck of a US Navy vessel approaching Bikini Atoll in February 1946, and you're looking at a ring of coral islands surrounding a turquoise lagoon in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Behind you is the world that just ended a war with atomic weapons. Ahead of you is the place that will be erased to test them. 23 small islands form a necklace around the lagoon. White sand beaches, palm trees bending in the trade winds, water so clear you can see the coral 30 feet down. This looks like paradise. It is paradise. And in 4 months, the United States government will detonate a nuclear weapon here. Then another. Then 21 more over the next 12 years. This is not an accident. This is not collateral damage. This is deliberate sacrifice. An entire atoll, an entire people, was removed from existence to see what atomic fire does to ships, to structures, to life itself. The atoll is small. The land area of all 23 islands combined is less than 4 square miles. But the lagoon is massive, 20 miles across, deep enough to anchor a fleet, and that's exactly what the Navy has done. You can see them now as your ship enters the lagoon. 73 vessels arranged in a grid. Battleships, aircraft carriers, destroyers, submarines, captured Japanese warships, German vessels. Some are painted bright colours to make them more visible in aerial photographs. Others are left grey. All of them are empty. No crews, no power. Just floating targets waiting for the bomb. The ships are loaded with equipment. Fuel tanks, ammunition, aircraft on the carrier decks. The Navy wants to know what happens when an atomic weapon detonates near a fleet. They're about to find out. But before the bombs, there were people. The Bikinians. They've lived on this atoll for at least 2,000 years, maybe longer. The population in 1946 is 167 people. They live on Bikini Island, the largest island in the atoll, in a village of thatched houses built from palm fronds and coral. They fish the lagoon. They grow taro and breadfruit. They harvest coconuts. They live a subsistence existence, mostly untouched by the modern world. The atoll is so remote that Western contact was minimal until the late 1800s. The islands became a German protectorate, then a Japanese mandate after World War I, then American after World War II. But the Bikinians themselves remained largely unchanged. Their lives followed the rhythms of the ocean, the seasons, the traditions of their ancestors, until March 1946. The military governor of the Marshall Islands, Commodore Ben Wyatt, arrives at Bikini. He gathers the Bikinians and tells them the United States government needs their island, for the good of mankind, to end all wars. The atomic bomb, he explains, is a weapon so powerful it must be understood. Tests must be conducted, and Bikini Atoll has been chosen. The Bikinians are told they can return after the tests are complete. Temporary relocation, a few months, maybe a year. Judah, the leader of the Bikinians, considers this. His people have no concept of nuclear weapons, no understanding of radiation, no framework to comprehend what's being asked. But they've been taught to respect authority. The Americans defeated the Japanese. The Americans are powerful. And Wyatt is telling them this is important for mankind. Judah agrees, the Bikinians agree, they will leave their home, temporarily. On March 7th, 1946, the entire population of Bikini Atoll boards Navy landing craft. They take what they can carry. Mats, cooking pots, tools. They leave everything else. The houses, the fishing equipment, the graves of their ancestors. They're told they'll be back soon. They're taken to Rongerik Atoll, 125 miles east. Rongerik is smaller. The soil is poor, the fish are less abundant. There's a Marshallese saying about Rongerik, the land is poisoned. But the Bikinians are told this is temporary. They try to make it work. They build shelters, they fish, they plant what they can, and they wait to go home. Back at Bikini, the transformation is total. The Navy moves in with thousands of personnel. Construction crews, scientists, film crews. Observation equipment is installed on every island, cameras, radiation detectors, instruments to measure blast pressure, heat, electromagnetic pulse. The village is dismantled. The structures are either destroyed or left as test subjects. Animals are brought in, goats, pigs, rats, placed at various distances from the target fleet to measure radiation effects on living tissue. Everything is being prepared for Operation Crossroads, the first peacetime nuclear weapons tests. The world is watching. Journalists from dozens of countries arrive. This will be the most photographed, most documented explosion in history up to this point. The first bomb is called Able. It's a Mark III nuclear device, the same type dropped on Nagasaki, 23 kilotons. The delivery method is a B-29 bomber. The Dave's Dream, flown by the same crew that participated in some wartime missions. The target is the battleship USS Nevada, painted bright red to stand out. The Nevada survived Pearl Harbor. It survived Tujima. It's about to be subjected to atomic fire. On July 1st, 1946 at 9 a.m., the Dave's Dream releases the bomb from 30,000 feet. It falls for 43 seconds. The detonation altitude is planned for 1,500 feet above the target fleet. But the bomb misses. It explodes 1,500 feet above the water, but 2,000 feet off target. Still, the effect is immediate and catastrophic. The flash is blinding. White light that turns the sky into noon sun. Then the fireball. A sphere of superheated plasma expanding at thousands of feet per second. The surface of the water beneath the blast vaporizes instantly. A column of steam and water rises. Then the shockwave, a wall of compressed air moving faster than sound. It hits the nearest ships first. The blast pressure crushes structures, tears metal. The Nevada rocks violently but remains afloat. 5 ships sink immediately. Others are damaged beyond repair. The water in the lagoon is thrown into chaos, waves radiating out from the blast. The sound arrives late, a deep roar that echoes off the coral islands and rolls across the ocean. Observers 20 miles away feel the heat on their faces. Then comes the mushroom cloud, the iconic shape, the column of smoke and debris rising into the stratosphere. It climbs to 35,000 feet. The top spreads into a canopy of radioactive particles. The wind carries the cloud east, fallout begins to settle, radioactive debris raining down on the islands, on the ships, on the water. The lagoon is contaminated. Everything in the blast zone is contaminated. The animals on the ships that survived the blast are dying from radiation. Their organs are failing. Their cells are being destroyed. The scientists collect the bodies for study. This is what they came to learn, what radiation does to life. 3 weeks later, they detonate Baker, the second bomb. This one is different. Underwater detonation. The bomb is suspended beneath a landing craft in the center of the lagoon, 90 feet below the surface. The yield is the same, 23 kilotons, but the effect is vastly different. On July 25, 1946 at 8:35 a.m., Baker detonates. The lagoon explodes. The water doesn't just vaporize, it's thrown upward in a column 2 million tons heavy, rising 6,000 feet into the air. A hollow column of water with the shockwave inside it. Expanding, churning, filled with radioactive steam and pulverized coral. At the base, a dome of water swells outward. The Wilson cloud, a condensation phenomenon, forms around the blast. The ships closest to the detonation are lifted by the water column, then dropped. Some capsize, some are crushed by the falling water. 8 ships sink within hours. The lagoon becomes a cauldron. Waves crash in every direction. The water glows faintly from the radiation, but Baker creates a problem the scientists didn't fully anticipate. The water column falls back into the lagoon, carrying massive amounts of radioactive material. The water becomes a soup of fission products. Everything the water touches is contaminated. The surviving ships, the islands, the coral. Teams in protective gear board the vessels to measure radiation levels. The readings are off the charts. Attempting to decontaminate the ships proves futile. Scrubbing doesn't work. The radiation has bonded to the metal. Some ships are so hot they can't be approached. They're towed out of the lagoon and sunk in deep water. Others are studied until they become too dangerous, then scuttled. The lagoon itself is radioactive. Swimming is forbidden. Fishing is forbidden. The atoll is no longer habitable. Not for years. Maybe not for decades. The Bikinians still on Rongerik are starving. The atoll can't support them. Food runs out. They're dependent on irregular supply drops from the Navy. In 1947, they're moved again, to Kwajalein Atoll. They live in tents on a small island. Then, in 1948, they're moved to Kili Island, 425 miles south of Bikini. Kili is not an atoll. It's a single island with no lagoon. The Bikinians are lagoon people. They fish lagoons. They navigate lagoons. Kili has a reef, but it's exposed to the open ocean. Fishing is dangerous. The island is frequently cut off by storms. The Bikinians struggle to adapt. They're told Bikini is still not safe. They're told to be patient. Years pass. A generation grows up that has never seen their home. At Bikini, the tests continue. The urgency of the early Cold War drives the program forward. In 1954, Operation Castle begins. These are thermonuclear tests, hydrogen bombs, magnitudes larger than the weapons used on Japan. The first test is Castle Bravo, detonated on March 1st, 1954, on a small island at the northern edge of the atoll. The predicted yield is 6 megatons. The actual yield is 15 megatons, the largest nuclear test ever conducted by the United States. 2.5 times larger than expected. The fireball is miles wide. The mushroom cloud rises 130,000 feet into the stratosphere. The explosion vaporizes the island it was detonated on. The coral, the sand, the equipment, everything is turned into radioactive vapor and ash. The cloud drifts east and northeast, carried by unexpected wind patterns. The fallout from Castle Bravo spreads across inhabited atolls, Rongelap, Utirik. The people there, mostly Marshallese, have no warning. White ash begins falling from the sky like snow. It covers everything. The roofs, the ground, the water supplies. Children play in it. People don't know what it is. By the time evacuation begins 2 days later, everyone has been exposed. They develop radiation sickness, burns, hair loss, nausea. Some will die from cancer years later. The atoll is contaminated for decades. The inhabitants are relocated. Again. A Japanese fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon No. 5, is operating 80 miles east of Bikini when Castle Bravo detonates. The crew sees the flash. They see the cloud. Hours later, the fallout reaches them. White ash covering the deck. The crew becomes ill. One man dies 7 months later from radiation exposure. The incident becomes international news. Japan, the only nation to suffer atomic attack, is outraged. The US pays compensation, but the tests continue. 23 nuclear detonations at Bikini Atoll between 1946 and 1958. The cumulative yield is equivalent to 7,200 Hiroshima bombs. The atoll is saturated with radiation. In 1968, President Lyndon Johnson announces that Bikini is safe. Radiation levels have decreased. The Bikinians can return home. A small group goes back in 1969. They find the islands unrecognizable. The vegetation has changed. Coconut crabs, a staple food, are huge and abundant. The crabs feed on coconuts. The coconuts are radioactive. The crabs concentrate the radiation. Eating them is dangerous. But the Bikinians don't know this yet. They resettle. They rebuild. They fish. They eat the local food. For a decade, they try to make it work. Then, in 1978, new medical examinations revealed dangerous levels of radiation in the Bikinians' bodies. Strontium-90 and cesium-137 absorbed from the contaminated food and water. The levels are increasing. The risk of cancer is high. The US government evacuates them again. Bikini Atoll is declared unsafe. Permanently. The Bikinians leave for the second time. Most will never return. The islands are abandoned. The houses are left to decay. The jungle reclaims them. Today, Bikini Atoll is empty. The radiation has decreased but hasn't disappeared. The half-life of cesium-137 is 30 years. The half-life of plutonium-239 is 24,000 years. Parts of the atoll will remain contaminated for millennia. The lagoon is a graveyard. The sunken ships from the 1946 tests are still there, resting on the coral. Divers visit them now. The wrecks are famous. The USS Saratoga, an aircraft carrier, lies in 180 feet of water. The USS Arkansas, a battleship, is upside down on the bottom. The water is clear. The marine life has returned. Fish swim through the rusted corridors of ships that were obliterated by atomic fire. The scene is beautiful and haunting. A museum of destruction in crystal water. The islands themselves are overgrown. Palm trees and scrub vegetation cover everything. The old test structures remain. Concrete bunkers, observation posts, rusted equipment. Nature is reclaiming what was taken, but the soil is still contaminated. Eating food grown here is still dangerous. Drinking the groundwater is dangerous. The atoll is beautiful and lethal. The Bikinians are scattered. Some live on Kili Island. Some live on Egypt Island in Majuro Atoll. Some live in the United States. The population has grown to over 5,000 descendants, but they have no homeland. The atoll they were promised they could return to remains closed. Compensation has been paid, trust funds established, but money doesn't replace land. It doesn't replace the lagoon their ancestors fished for 2,000 years. It doesn't replace the culture that was tied to that specific place. The Bikinians are a people in exile from a home that still exists but cannot be inhabited. Walk through Bikini Island now if you could. The beach is pristine, white sand, clear water, coconut palms swaying. It looks untouched. But the Geiger counter tells a different story. The soil clicks, the crabs click, the coconuts click. The radiation is invisible but present, embedded in the atoms of everything that grows here. The island is a ghost, beautiful, deadly, forbidden. The legacy of Bikini is written in the DNA of the Marshallese people. Thyroid cancer rates among those exposed to fallout are among the highest in the world. Birth defects, miscarriages, generational trauma. The compensation is inadequate, the cleanup is incomplete. The responsibility is acknowledged but not fully addressed. The United States used these islands as a testing ground and moved on. The Bikinians are left dealing with the consequences. The atoll was sacrificed for science, for military readiness, for understanding the weapons that ended World War II and defined the Cold War. The data collected here shaped nuclear policy, informed weapon design, demonstrated the catastrophic power of thermonuclear devices. The information was valuable, strategic. But the cost was an entire culture displaced, an ecosystem irradiated, a place made uninhabitable for generations. Stand at the edge of the lagoon at sunset. The water glows in the fading light, pink and orange reflecting off the surface. The ships below are shadows, the islands are silhouettes. The scene is peaceful, but the peace is false. Beneath the beauty is contamination. Beneath the water are the graves of ships destroyed by weapons designed to destroy cities. This place was chosen because it was remote, because it was small, because the people who lived here had no power to refuse, and because the ocean would contain the radiation. Except it didn't. The fallout spread. The contamination persisted. The promise of safety was a lie. For now, the islands remain empty. The lagoon is clear and silent. The coral grows around the wrecks. The fish return. The crabs grow large, feeding on radioactive coconuts. The Bikinians wait, scattered across the Pacific for a home they may never reclaim. The atoll that was paradise became a proving ground. The proving ground became a graveyard. And the graveyard remains, beautiful and deadly, a monument to the weapons that were tested here and the people who paid the price. This is Bikini Atoll. This is what happens when a place is sacrificed for progress. The land remembers, the water remembers, and the people, exiled from their ancestors' graves, remember most of all.